and what our background is about. And then talk a little bit about David, our presenter today, and then he'll go into his presentation today on career development planning, and talk through a presentation as well as a demonstration. And then as Simon mentioned, we'll have the wrap-up questions after that. So just a little bit about Terra Information Group. We've been an SAP and SuccessFactors implementation partner for almost 20 years now. So we'd like to think we're a true HR implementation professionals, and we're a certified implementation partner with SuccessFactors as well as a reseller. So throughout the years, we've implemented over 100 successful implementations of SuccessFactors and other HCM solutions. We also offer consultants, outside of SuccessFactors, but SuccessFactors is definitely our main practice. And why a lot of our clients like working with us and have such successful projects is because we're very easy to work with, very, very flexible, and on all of our projects we offer a fixed scope, fixed time, and a fixed price. And not only that, but we also offer milestone payments. So we have one fixed price, and then we don't even invoice you until we hit the milestones. Another thing that we've been known for is the rapid deployments. So besides being very flexible and easy to work with, we have our own rapid deployment methodology, which helps us keep the cost down and the time down, and it makes it very predictable projects. So the other thing, since we've been in business for almost 20 years, we like to think we've seen it all as far as the integrations. We're a true integration experts from SuccessFactors into SAP, but we've also worked with other companies such as ADP and Kronos and so on. So what we offer is a unique blend of our own consultants on-site, also within our office and our headquarters in Chicago and throughout the United States, and also offshore. We have offices in India, the Philippines, and Argentina. So if you'd like to have any other questions for us, at the end of this presentation, please reach out to us, and we look forward to hearing from you. A little bit about our clients is we work with all different types of sizes and different industries. Since we mostly focus on SuccessFactors, we don't really have just a few verticals we work with. We work with high-tech, manufacturing, public sector, consumer products, and so on. You'll see some very recognizable names there, such as Tyson Foods, Nike, Smith Micro, and so on. So if you go on to the next slide, and David's very modest, so I'd like to introduce him. He's a true professional. Our clients absolutely love him. He's been doing this for over 20 years of experience, very talented in a lot of the different SuccessFactors modules, and also as far as training and workflow. And he's also talking today about career development planning, which he's an expert in, but he also has a real breadth of different experience within HR. He's worked at a few of our clients, which have been very successful projects, such as Purdue Pharmaceutical and also Nike. So if we go to the next slide, I'll pass it over to David, and David can start with his presentation.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody's attendance to this webinar. I'm sure many of you are battling the elements outside, so hopefully this will be a little bit of a diversion from the weather outside. So regarding employee development planning, why are we doing this? Why develop our employees? What's in it for us? What's the return on investment? Michelangelo, the famous painter, got in trouble back in the day. He was asked that exact question. Why does he excel? How has he developed into the expert that he is? And again, he got in trouble back in the day because he said the problem with people is not that they shoot too high and miss. The problem with people is that they shoot for average and they hit it spot on. When we think about our employee population, what are they shooting for? Are they shooting to develop and meet their full potential? Are we building a connection between their development opportunities as well as a connection to the organization? That's a key fundamental aspect in having employees feel fulfilled in their role. And to illustrate this, or one example of how sometimes managers tend to have a perception about their employees and their ability to continue to develop, we have a little story called Clean Laundry. Clean Laundry is about a couple, Jack and Julie, that moved into a new neighborhood. And their next door neighbor used to hang their clothing out after it was washed to dry. Every morning, Jack and Julie had a practice of having breakfast together, and their kitchen window happened to overlook the laundry area that Jack and Julie's neighbors were hanging up their laundry to dry. Well, Julie, who was a perfectionist and a laundry nut, made a comment to Jack that the laundry of the next door neighbor looked dirty. The whites were gray, the colors weren't bright, and she thought that she needed to talk to the neighbor about cleaning their laundry a little bit better. Jack calmed her down, and they moved on with their day. Well, about a week later, they had breakfast. The same exact thing happened. Julie looked out at the neighbor's laundry hanging up in the yard, and obviously they had much better weather than most of us are going through right now. And Julie made another comment that the laundry looked dirty, and Jack pacified her again. This went on for several weeks. On the fourth or fifth week, Julie and Jack met for breakfast, and Julie looked out her kitchen window. Lo and behold, the laundry was beautiful. The whites were white, the darks, the colors were very vibrant. And Julie looked at Jack and said, "Oh my gosh, somebody must have talked to the neighbors and told them about their laundry problem." And Jack said, "Well, actually, this morning I woke up a little bit early and I went around and cleaned the outside of our windows." Do we have a film over our viewpoint or vantage point when we judge our employees' development? Do we have a clear understanding of what our employees' goals are and what they would like to do from a development perspective to reach their full potential, feel connected to the organization, and really have a sense of fulfillment at the end of the day? Employee development, commonly referred to as the Cdp module, is truly a gateway to employee contentment. It mitigates turnover, and it sets an understanding of expectations for tenure. This is critical to the millennial population that are looking to make sure that they are connected to an organization. There's an entirely different retention program or outlook that we have to take when it comes to dealing with millennials. Millennials need to know that they're developing, that there is something in it for them, that this is not just a 9-to-5 job, that they are actually building a career. The job stands for just over broke, and millennials are not looking for a job, they're looking for a career. The best way to solidify a career is to build development goals and objectives that can be either short-term or long-term. The other unique ability of the Cdp module is this is a documented communication tool. It's not meant to catch employees or managers doing something wrong. It's meant to catch them doing something right, putting in writing what their developmental goals or objectives are. It can also map development opportunities back to the organization's key pillars, role-specific competencies, whatever the organization is trying to achieve to meet business needs. And it truly ensures employee and organization's continued success by, again, building that connection to employee satisfaction and what is critical in today's environment, fulfillment in their role, which, by the way, outnumbers monetary rewards. Fulfillment in the role that the employee is currently in is the critical motivator to enhancing and establishing a commitment to stay with the organization. If you are utilizing a learning management system or a learning environment, the Cdp module also can tap into the learning management environment, which really takes advantage of all of the resources that you have within your organization. So what we're going to do now is do a brief demo on the Cdp module. All right, I'm thinking that most of you are fairly familiar with the home screen of an organization. When you log into your Successfactors instance, there's a typical to-do list. If you have administrative alerts set up, there's links, there's all types of admin favorites. If you're an admin person and you'd like to set up admin favorites, this is a typical home screen. left-hand side of the screen, there's your typical drop-down box, and we want to go to the development module. This module can be renamed anything that you would like it to be called. It does not have to be development. It could be something that is unique to your organization. But clicking on the development or Cdp module, the system will load and take us to an area of the organization that is earmarked for development. In this homepage of the development module, we have an opportunity to put an introduction in place for the employee population. In this example, where the introduction is stating that it is helping employees reach their full potential, and it is talking a little bit about what is important to the organization, that a continuum of employee empowerment is a profound element of career development planning. This organization in this demo really wanted to make the employees accountable as well as empowered to reach their development goals. And that includes setting up development goals, sharing those with a peer or manager when they're ready to share those objectives with their manager or peer, as well as documenting their successes and areas that they need some assistance in. So there's a couple of bullet points that explain to the employee why this is important to not only the organization, but also the employee population. And a couple of more lines, echoing, again, those same sentiments. And then directions on how to create a development goal. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it also helps the employee walk through the development process. Now, we've set up a couple of sample objectives that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail, but the key item that I want to point out is that we have two categories that are illustrated. One is a ready-to-share category. The second category is an in-draft category. This will be important in about 10 minutes as we walk through the career development process. If you have Successfactors, you're very familiar with the objective module, where there's typically a button that the employee can click on to create a new objective or a new goal for either their particular department as an individual or from an organizational perspective. The Cdp module works very similar to the objective module by having a button that the employee clicks on to create a new development goal. When they click on that item or that button, a pop-up window will load that literally walks through what is needed from the employee to set up the development goal. One thing that our organization, Terra, does is we customize this particular element, which is really critical to meet the business requirements. So what you're going to see is a sample of what we can do. However, as we go through this development pop-up box, please keep in mind that we can make this fit the business needs that you have. This is fully customizable, and we can create this to, again, meet your business needs. As I mentioned briefly before, we have a selection of ready-to-share or in-draft. And we also have an archive catalog, which I will get to momentarily. But in a nutshell, archive is a classification that the employee can move that development goal to a status once it's completed. For the time being, we want to focus on ready-to-share and in-draft. The employee in this particular example is prompted to list the title of the development action, a description, and in this case, which competency that particular development goal is related to. This ensures that the development goal is tied in some way to the business pillars, the business requirements, and ensures a return on investment. Now, typically, when we roll out a Cdp module, employees don't really know what we're looking for. What does the organization want from me? What are the expectations? What do they expect me to create regarding a development goal? And a lot of times, employees just don't know. So we've put this together, this particular example, to help walk employees through a thought process of creating a meaningful development goal. For example, we are asking them, What is your expected outcome? What is the timing of this action? Is it a short-term goal or is it a long-term goal? What is the purpose? Are you interested in developing in your current role? Are you preparing for a future role? Or do you just want to enhance your general skill set in whatever business acumen that you're in? So we're asking our employee to document what they're looking to do with this. And by the way, if they select prepare for a future role, this also can tie in very successfully to the succession module in helping to prepare a bench for future employees in case there's an opening or allowing the organization to prepare for a need in the future. We're also trying to pull out of the employee, who will you look for to support or for support in accomplishing this action? What will be the impact to the business, to your team, to your peers? So we're really prompting them to think through, what is the value of this? How will you keep track of it? You know, a lot of times employees set up a development goal and they're gung-ho and they're excited about it and they can't wait to get started. And a couple of weeks go by and priorities happen to shift around a little bit and they end up losing track of that development goal. So we're prompting them in this particular example to tell us, what are you doing? Who will keep you on track to make sure that you're fulfilling or accomplishing this objective? Finally, will this development action require company assets? That's a nice way of saying, is it going to cost the organization money? Are you looking for financial support in developing this objective? What is the start date? And that's populated with your typical Successfactors calendar that can be modified as you see fit. How will you know when you're done? Seems like a simplistic question, right? You'd be surprised how many employees set an objective or development goal and don't really understand how they'll know if they're done. And finally, your typical status box where an employee can indicate the status of the objective. Again, this is fully customizable, not only with the selection items, but also colors, the color of the font, the background color, etc. And then we have an open notation box where the employee can log on incrementally and update their development goal as they see fit. Okay, an example is, in this case, achieve a master certification from the Society of Human Resource Management. Now, this is just an example. This particular example is listed as a ready to share, and the title is completed, the description, it's tied into a competency. What is your expected outcome? Is it short term? What is the purpose? Who will keep you accountable for accomplishing this action? So the employee listed out, manager, matrix peers and employee relation area, self-driven. What will be the impact? Who will keep you on track? And in this case, frequent check-in with the manager, and also this employee indicated their spouse will. Their spouse is hoping that the employee is promoted and further achieve success in their career. So the spouse is going to help keep this person on track. Finances, the employee is indicating that there's a $1,500 cost to this. So that gives the organization more information to determine if they can approve it or not. And again, the start date, how will you know if you're done, and status and action notes. Now, we also talked about the fact that we have an in-draft selection or category, and I will open up a sample of an in-draft. So the employee is thinking to himself that he wants to determine how to get a promotion, but he's not really thought this through. It's not fully baked. So he does not want to share this with his manager because he's not ready to, and he wants to make sure that when he presents this to his manager, that it's a well thought out process for getting promoted. And maybe listing getting promoted is not the approach to take. So, but he didn't want to lose that, so he started drafting an objective. He classified the category as in draft and has not completed the rest of the items that are required. So he just created that and saved it. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to have an in draft or ready to share? And by the way, there is a linkage, as I mentioned, that if you are utilizing a learning management system, we can tie that into the development module, and it really brings together your entire learning management system catalog and course offerings directly into the development module. Maybe this individual doesn't need to spend $1,500 to get certified. Maybe there's an internal resource that can help educate the employee so that he is prepared to take the exam without paying the Society of Human Resource Management the $1,500. Okay, so getting back to the categorization of the objectives, the reason that that is important is that there is a communication tool. How is the employee going to get this information to their manager? The way that they do that is through a form that is routed very similarly to a performance management form. So we will go to our performance module, click on performance. We will find our career development plan form for David Friedlander, and we will open that. When we create a form, or what Successfactors calls a template, again, there is the ability to customize this as you see fit with employee information that lists typically the employee's name and their manager, an introductory section to the form, which can be and should be consistent with the introduction in the Cdp module, and then finally what's listed are the development goals. Now, interestingly enough, the only objectives or development goals that are feeding into this form are the objectives or development goals that are indicated as ready to share. So if it's in draft, the objective will not populate on the form. That's actually a beautiful thing for the employee population that is not ready to share a particular development goal with their manager. So if it's in draft, it will not populate on the form. If it's ready to share, it will. And by the way, again, with customization, we can change the names of those categories to anything that is needed to meet the business requirements. In this particular case, we have edit functionality enabled so that if the employee sees something on their form before they submit it to the manager, they can certainly edit directly from the form. And they can also add comments if they see fit to their manager. Hey, manager, please review this and make sure that I can get the funding to move forward with this, this particular objective. We have built a route map within the form that allows the employee to send this directly to their manager. However, if the development goal is applicable, they can also get feedback from a peer. And when they select Get Feedback, a search mechanism opens so that they can search the entire employee database to send this form to a peer, a matrix manager, maybe a subordinate. Whatever the rules are around the organization's preferences, we can build that so that the employee can seek additional information from a colleague or someone other than their manager. The manager automatically is pre-populated in the form routing mechanism, which follows your typical hierarchy that is fed in from your data feed. So that's pretty much a standard behavior, but the functionality works really well. So when the employee is ready, they would send or share this form with their manager. And it's a really cool process for helping employees and managers stay on the same page regarding development. Okay, another benefit of the development module that I'd like to talk about is, I want to make sure I don't lose anything, is something that's called a career worksheet. The career worksheet functionality in a nutshell, and obviously this is not me, sorry about that photo glitch, she's much more attractive than I am, but the career worksheet allows an employee to not only set and work development module or development objectives in their own personal field of development, but also it allows them to measure themselves against potential future roles. And if by chance we get an employee that is qualified and relevant for a future role, we're helping to identify a bench strength again without using the succession module of not only a potential replacement for a position if needed, but also, again, to solidify that connection that there is a future opportunity within the company for the employee so that they don't need to look outside of the organization to feel fulfilled. Once a performance review cycle passes, and I jump back to my current role, which is an administrative support role, the career worksheet will populate with a rating for each of the current competencies. So it will show the employee how well they're doing in their current role. They can also select an additional role or roles based on the job roles that are set up within your organization. They can select a role that they would like to aspire to. And in this case, the employee has selected an HR professional role. What they can then do is send a form to either their manager or possibly more appropriately, the manager of this HR professional role to help get feedback on their readiness to assume that role. And there are multiple ways of doing this. There can be a direct communication process where the readiness is evaluated, or a form can be created where the readiness is documented. And in this case, the career worksheet would address the competencies of the HR professional role, not the role that the employee is currently in. Now, this can potentially create some challenges for the person that is completing this form, and there are instructions that are available to assist either their manager or the manager of the HR professional role in helping to identify, is this employee ready or potentially ready to assume this role? And if not, what development opportunities can we recommend so that the employee is better suited to be successful in achieving their desire to acquire this role? So there's a rating scale that can be set up where the employee self-rates, can add comments, and then they can send this form again to either their current manager or the manager of the HR professional role, if that is more applicable. Now, this was a very brief demo of the development module and the career worksheet, but the intent of illustrating this is really to show how powerful this tool can be for enabling a sense of fulfillment and literally excitement around developing to meet the employee's full potential, which a lot of employees take for granted. We get so caught up in our day-to-day activity and the functionality of the fire of the day, so to speak, that we tend to forget that our employees are, people that are driven by the need to feel self-fulfilled at the end of the day, to feel that they've accomplished something, to be appreciated for the work that they've done and the contributions that they've made to the organization, all of which is a very easy item to accomplish if we just focus on that a little bit. Okay. So what we'd like to do now is take about 10 minutes and see if there are any questions that we can help answer as we move forward with this presentation. Simon, would you like to open that up, please?
Sorry. Hi there. So I have not received any questions as yet. If anybody has questions, once again, please type them in the questions box, and then David will answer them, one at a time.
Great. Thank you. And if we don't have questions at this time, and you would like to save those questions for future, the contact information for getting those questions to us, as well as seeking additional information, or perhaps maybe a more in-depth demo where we go into a little bit more detail about not only the Cdp module, but any of the SuccessFactors modules. The contact information is listed on your screen right now. Scott Lance, who you heard earlier in the presentation. And we will also be sending out this contact information to all of our participants on this webinar so that you'll have that for future use.
We've got one question here.
Okay.
The question is, how long does it take to implement this?
So with our rapid deployment program, once we understand the business needs, we can literally get your CDP module up and running within a 2 to 4 week period. Part of what the struggle is, or maybe I shouldn't say struggle, but the identification needs is getting the business requirements communicated to us. And we have a SuccessFactors workbook which we utilize to make sure that this is right, that we gather all the information that we need. There is a week or 2 weeks involved with testing to make sure that everything is configured perfectly. Scott, Mamta, myself, everybody at Terra is not satisfied unless we have 100% perfection. We're a little bit OCD when it comes to configuration. So, you know, we want to make sure it's perfect. But under the rapid deployment, we can get this up and running pretty quickly. And thank you for whoever asked that question.
We've got a few more questions now. And okay. The next question we have is, how do you relate career development with external learning? So external learning can be tied in, and there are actually a number of ways that you can do this. I would have to evaluate what is the intention of the organization using external learning. Does that tie into the organization's competencies or pillars or items that are critical to the business success, or is it more of a sidebar external learning mechanism to simply enhance the employee skill set? But either way, we can tie that into the development module. We've done that successfully in the past, so that's not really a big issue to do that. Thank you for that question. Another question, David, is can a career development plan be linked to a category of role management rather than a specific role, program manager?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That can be categorized exactly as indicated by that question. The configuration for most of the functionality within the CDP module, I'm not going to say it's limitless, but we have a lot of ability to configure this to make sure that it works the way the organization wants to. An example of that is the categorization of the ready to share or in draft development goals, where they attach as we see fit to the form. So thank you for that question.
Question we have here is, it says, how can we engage TIG to do the project?
So the best way to, sorry. I'm sorry, Sam, I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add to that, and it says, can we engage TIG to do support work as well?
Yes. So the best way to accomplish that is to contact Scott, and his email is scott@terrainformation.com, or his phone number is 480-650-4358. And Scott will respond as quickly as possible to set up a meeting further with whoever's inquiring about this to go over the best process to get TIG engaged in your instance. Good question, thank you.
Okay. Another question is, how does SuccessFactors apply the regulations of other countries?
That's a great question, and fortunately, we just recently went through that with a global clothing and sportswear marketing, organization that has rolled out SuccessFactors in initially 5 different countries and is planning on expanding into 32 companies, and that's the Nike organization. We work directly with the organization or the country's regulatory requirements to make sure that SuccessFactors fully meet any requirement that is stipulated by the country's regulatory requirements. That has not been a problem at all. And as you know, hopefully most people know, SuccessFactors is a global company that is owned by SAP. So this is, they've certainly been around the block a few times regarding regulatory requirements. So that would not be an issue at all. It's a good question, and I'm glad to hear that somebody's thinking through those implications, but it's an issue that is resolved and would not be a problem. Good question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Another question we have is there a way to link an LMS program or curriculum to CDP? What would that look like?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest benefits of CDP. That, and I went over that briefly, there's a small link in the Ctp module that allows the employee setting up a development objective to link a learning development or a learning activity directly to that development goal. So yes, the learning management system can be configured to talk to the Cdp module. And not only that, we can configure a two-way communication so that if there is an update that is input through the Cdp module, that update will be reflected in the LMS system also. Likewise, if the employee updates the LMS system, that update will feed over to the Cdp module. So there is not a duplication of efforts in tracking your learning management activity. And I hate to sound like an HR geek, but when it works well, it's a beautiful thing because it really does save a lot of time with populating those systems. You only need to populate one system, and it feeds to both the LMS and the Cdp module. Great thought process. Thank you.
That's great. David, we have another question, and the question is, do you do other modules of Successfactors?
Absolutely. We have implemented every single module within the Successfactors spectrum of modules, and we also make it a point to stay on top of all of the quarterly releases, all of the latest and greatest information that is coming from Successfactors. And quite frankly, you know, we're a little bit empathetic to organizations that tell us that they really struggle with keeping up with all of the quarterly release information because it seems to come frequently, which is every quarter, obviously, but as soon as we get acclimated to one quarterly release and the latest upgrades, boom, we get another one. So Terra makes sure that we stay on top of that internally, and that's one of our key drivers and benefits. We know what's coming down the pike, and we know proactively how that is going to impact your modules as well as related modules. And it's a key area that we tend to differentiate ourselves from because it is so powerful that we have to know what the future plans are with the Successfactors application. Another really good question. This group is being proactive, and we really appreciate these questions. Spot on.
David, another question we have is, you referenced the linkage. Where did it go? I just kind of, sorry.
No problem.
You referenced the succession. How does that work?
So the succession module is really, in a nutshell, it's identifying, you know, a bench strength for potential either key positions or just non-key positions of employees that are ready and suited to go into a potentially open position for whatever reason, and it builds on criteria that are required from the business of how do we identify a successor to a particular role, to a particular position, or to backfill a particular employee. The development module can feed some of the information that we gather from the career worksheet directly into the succession module, so they work very hand in hand in really helping to identify who the bench are in the organization. What employees meet the criteria that we're looking for? What are our high performers, high potentials? How do we identify that? And that's really what the succession module does. The career development module helps to feed into the beginning part of succession by looking at people that have established a career worksheet and identifying who those people are that are interested in developing, and if they're not quite ready for a successor role, how do we get them there? And it really works fabulously when the two modules speak to each other, and truly does do an HR job in identifying successors. So I have heard directly from many HR teams that absolutely love the fact that this is doing some of their work for them, not necessarily for them, but with them in helping to identify successors. And we can establish or set up a succession module demo if you're interested. The way that that would occur is to contact Scott again, and we will put a sense of urgency around getting a demo for you for the succession module.
Okay, great, David. We have another question, and the question is, what are some of the modules that you guys have for SuccessFactors? Yep,
so I'm just going to pull up our SuccessFactors demo session. On the home page, there's a drop-down box that literally lists the list of modules that we are very comfortable in implementing for whatever organization needs to have these implemented. And that includes the JAM or the social media module, the goals or objective module. The performance tab is basically a repository of forms. One of my pet peeves actually is to rename this talent forms or exchange forms or something that really references your templates or forms as opposed to performance. Just a sidebar comment. But also there's a calibration, compensation module, the CDP that we've talked about. There are a couple of different recruiting modules and external and internal recruiting module. Succession, there's a new time and attendance module, which is pretty cool. Presentations, the payroll module, and again, basically anything that SuccessFactors offers, we're able to implement for an organization. And we have certified employees throughout the whole curriculum of modules so that your implementation will be done right. Again, we're a little bit OCD about that. In fact, we were talking, why can't OCD be spelled in alpha order? Can they call it CDE so that at least the letters are in the correct order? But anyway, we like to do it right. There's one way to do an implementation, and that is to do it right. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Another question we have is, what will be the biggest difference between SuccessFactors versus Workday or similar tools?
So that's a question that we get real frequently. And, you know, I cannot knock Workday. It's a great product. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with Workday. I happen to be a little bit biased towards SuccessFactors because of the functionality that has occurred within the last year and a half. It really ties all the modules together. And again, all due respect to Workday, I just think the SuccessFactors product, from my personal experience, is one step ahead of Workday. So the modules work, they fit together nicely, they utilize your entire body of information, whether it's the LMS system, prior reviews, you know, current successor or succession planning. It just works. It's right. So, you know, there's a lot of studies that are accessible via Google that compare Workday to SuccessFactors and vice versa. And again, I happen to be a believer that SuccessFactors is the way to go. But it's my personal opinion. I'm, you know, a little bit biased. I like the product. It works well. And we've been very, very successful in implementing it to major companies that have upwards of 100,000 employees without any hiccups. So it works well. Good question. Tough question to answer without sounding biased. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Simon, did I lose you?
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
we have one more question. The question is, we are having some issues with CDP and LMS integration. Are you able to help?
Yes, absolutely. And if I told you how many times I've heard that, that is a very common issue to have. And part of that is the configuration between CDP and LMS has to be set up as a two-way street. In a lot of instances that we go in to look at, The Cdp module is typically set up to feed to LMS. However, the configuration to go back from LMS to Cdp is missed, and I would say 90% of the time that's what the issue is. So yes, by contacting Scott, again, we would be glad to set up a due diligence session and take a look at the instance with the organization's permission and see if we can identify that. And actually, we probably can identify that fairly quickly for you. And I don't mean that conceited or you know, in any manner other than matter of fact. We have experience in identifying that type of issue. Thank you. Really good question and a very common concern that we hear.
David, there's one more question. Somebody is asking, when are you going to have your next webinar, and if you have a topic selected for that?
Great question. And what I would encourage this group to do, because we are planning out our webinars now for January, February, March, not only the first quarter of 2017, but also, you know, the second quarter. Please send Scott your subject matters that you are interested in. If you would like a demo in Succession or the LMS system, let us know what your interests are, and we can help gear our future webinars to that particular subject. So, yep, we'll be glad to help set up our future webinars to what the needs of this group are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. I think that was it for all the questions.
Okay.
Should there be any questions, please feel free to email Scott, and we will be happy to take your question and answer your questions. You can also email either at scott@terrainformation.com, or you can email at sales@terrainformation.com. I hope you all found this presentation very useful and informative, and I thank you guys for attending our webinar, and looking forward to having you guys attend our next upcoming webinars. Thank you so much. Be safe, stay warm, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.